Welcome to Inspire Saratoga, a show that highlights the people and stories that make our home a place of strength, inspiration, and success. I'm Michael Kurkowski, physical and mental performance coach and resident of Saratoga Springs. And in this show, my mission is to connect with the great people who also call this place home, hear about their work and what they do for this town, and share their insights and experiences in health, wealth, and happiness for you, my neighbors. Thank you for joining me wherever you are in town. Let's dive in. Christine O'Donnell, welcome to Inspire Saratoga.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I thank you very much for bringing us into your beautiful studio here. This is awesome.
I'm happy you're here. It's really awesome to showcase this space to anyone who will take a few minutes to sit in here with me. And then I get to do the whole audio thing with them. And they're like, oh my God.
Oh, I know. There's so much fun stuff behind the scenes.
In my head. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's great. So, one little bit of your background, you created Bright-Sided Studios, which is a podcasting networking company, which is so awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. So I love just the art of podcasting. I really just love interviewing and connecting with people. So I'm so curious to hear about the journey. But you're also a native of Saratoga. You grew up here, right?
Born in Saratoga Hospital.
Okay.
Went to the Saratoga Elementary Schools, Maple Ave, Saratoga High School. I was a Blue Streak, all that jazz.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, of all the time that you've been here, is there a favorite thing that you could say you have about Saratoga?
When you say favorite thing, what do you mean?
So is it a vibe? Is it like kind of when somebody asks you about like Saratoga and kind of what's your description of it? Like if you would say like, this is my favorite thing about living in this area.
I think that Saratoga Springs, when you are in Saratoga Springs, you have access to peace in a way that you don't in a lot of other places. Like the air smells clean. You can go for a lovely walk in the park, in one of many parks, and just clear your mind. You can feel close to nature. I really just am a nature girly, so I love being outside. I love going for walks, and there's a lot of green space around here. I love the springs. I love the history that come with the springs. It's not all great, but there's a lot of good stuff. And I think that a lot of us humans are connected by water.
Right.
It's starting to get so deep.
Oh, I love it. Let's go.
I just think that water connects us all. And it's like Saratoga is a water cooler, like a living spring system, because we are on a fault line and there's just so much history that's happened here. And so it feels like Saratoga is where my roots started, because this is where I was born. And then I branched out away from Saratoga, which I feel like was incredibly important, because I also realized Saratoga Springs is different than a lot of other places all over the world. And it's important to understand what the world is like and to get out and meet more people and to understand the ways of the world in a new place. And my family and I moved back here 3 years ago, and there was a bit of an adjustment period where I had a hard time moving back here from Los Angeles. It was just a very different vibe, and we were in LA for almost 10 years. So it took some readjusting, but it feels better now that I feel like more part of the community, I guess.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love you said connected to what. Have you read Blue Mind by Wallace Nichols?
I?
Okay. This is the first time I'm going to recommend this book on a podcast. I usually do it at least once.
Okay.
But it's a whole book about how we're connected to water, like with human biology. It's like you can take the most stressed out, most anxious person, and you can put them near water, and they're content with just looking out into the waves. There's something that is very
It's
visceral.
the ions.
It's
the ions.
We're going deep down the rabbit hole right off the bat.
Down into the
All right, I'm going to put a bookmark on that for a sec, because we can go on a whole nother podcast route on that.
Have you heard of the Anunnaki? Where are we going?
The unagi, as Ross Geller says it right there. So, all right. So you went to school for journalism, from the University of Minnesota, and then eventually brought into LA, and you lived out there for almost a decade, right? Okay. So your time in journalism, what eventually got you into the podcast world, and then kind of shifting from kind of one area of media into something a little bit different?
I would say I first really like discovered podcasting while I was still working in TV news. When I was in Los Angeles, I was working for KTTV. It's the Fox affiliate in LA, Fox LA. And I started my own, like, my first business endeavor was called Go BAMF, which BAMF stands for
Badass Motherfucker.
Badass Modern Female.
Okay.
Of course. Who is this audience?
I just was waiting to just say that right there because that's just so.
Yes. So, but like that was the idea. Like, step into this like part of you, this alter ego, this like this essence where you can just be like, yeah, I'm a badass, like, and I'm embracing it. And I really wanted to highlight badass women who are entrepreneurs, and so that's what I was doing with that brand. And then I met just so many women who were into podcasts and started podcasts and would listen to podcasts to feel inspired to keep building their business. And I, like, for example, Demi was this one woman who I think talked to me all about podcasting, and she got me like really hooked on some podcasts. I'm trying to remember what 13th Tribe was the name of her company. It's like a fashion company. And then also another journalist who was starting to grow her business. She started a podcast called The Newsworthy. Her name is Erica Mandy. And so we both were like TV journalists who started thinking outside of the box. What else do we want to do with our lives instead of telling a 2-minute story on the very worst day of someone's life? And for me, the idea of capturing stories in long form content just felt more ethical. It just felt more exciting to be able to stay with this one thought so much longer than 2 minutes. Not that there's not a place for those 2-minute stories, but the fact that people were really interested in long form content, like the entire Raw interview.
Right.
I was like, why am I not just repurposing my Raw interviews from TV news? And anyway, so that's when I first kind of became aware of podcasting, but I like didn't think of like launching a podcast, starting a podcasting business. None of that even entered my mind. It wasn't until I was working at a marketing company and I was on maternity leave. So I had gotten out of TV news. I'm now working at a marketing company, and they laid off my entire team. And I was saved by the baby. So because I had just gone on maternity leave, I didn't get laid off. And so one of my friends and I, who was laid off, started developing a podcast together during my maternity leave. Mm-hmm. And then she went and got hired by E! And so our podcast never got off the ground, but we had started thinking about it and working on it. And then when I came back to work, that marketing company was like, hey, we want you to do a podcast for one of our gurus. His name is Dr. Stephen Gundry. And so I developed and launched that podcast. And part of the goal was to help him become a New York Times bestseller with multiple different books. And he wrote the Plant Paradox series. Mm-hmm. And so I'm bringing this up because I know that this is a fitness audience, probably a health and wellness audience. So they might be aware of Dr. Stephen Gundry. And so he's where I got my like really big start with developing a podcast and speaking to that specific audience about all things Plant Paradox. So I went on the program, I like did the whole thing, and so that was my first, and that podcast became like one of the top health and wellness podcasts in 4 months.
Oh yeah, quickly.
And then I became a little bit like addicted to podcasting. Okay. It felt like, oh, this is something I'm uniquely qualified to do.
Yeah. What was it that struck you so much? Because I mean, you've been in TV and media for a long time before. This was something different from there. Like, first off, did you know like the impact of what podcasting was doing back then versus like more like legacy media and kind of mainstream media? Did you see the growth that was coming from podcasts before you really started listening to it and really getting into it?
So when I was in my maternity leave place, I was looking at just data. I was like going over data and noticing that like what is podcasting? Like really, like was an investigative journalist. So I needed to know the story behind it. Like, where did the name podcast come from?
Right.
Why podcast? Why are people into this thing? What's an RSS feed? Like which, like an MP3 file or a WAV file? What's the difference? Like all of these like little nitty gritty things about podcasting, I just didn't quite understand. So I started like deep diving into this, and I was like, there's a whole, like on my website, I have like a pod jargon, like FAQ that people can look at just to understand all of the different words in the podcasting industry. So yeah, I noticed that back then, not even 50% of the United States was aware of what a podcast was.
Right.
However, it went from like 28% to like 45% in like a year. And then it was like, and so then I think it went from like 45 to like 48% the next year. And so I was like, I'm seeing the writing on the wall, like this is growing. This is a new digital media that people are interested in. The rate of growth is significantly faster than the rate of growth in TV news, I was noticing. And it showed me that people were interested in quality conversations in a way, or quality content, long form content, in a way that they were not necessarily getting that from TV news, because TV news, from my perspective, seemed to be getting away from quality investigative storytelling. It was more like quantity. How many stories can we share with this team? Right. Yeah. Not necessarily be first, not be right. Being right is super important to local TV news companies. I think maybe it's a little bit different when you get to the national level, but like all local TV news journalists that I've become in contact with are like all very much competitive about being first, but also being right, having things clear. Everything was like, you had to have two different sources confirming things. Like these things were all super important, but also there's not necessarily those ethics being taken into consideration with podcasting. So there's a lot of like, what's ethical journalism? What's ethical podcasting? And are there people out there who are abusing some things to tell a salacious story with a podcast that maybe they shouldn't be? Like, for example, some like traumatic 911 calls. Yes, it's public information, and yes, you might be able to use it, but what's your end goal? Like, what's the greater purpose you're trying to serve? And that's something that you think about as a journalist working in TV news. That is not something that a lot of podcasters are thinking about. Podcasters are thinking of, not all podcasters, but some people have been abusing some like true crime specific stories to gain an audience. And that works. It works. So I understand why they're doing it. But as somebody who has also made mistakes when it comes to covering true crime, I try to learn from mine, and I hope to empower other podcasters to learn from theirs as well.
Why do you think that is in podcasting? Do you think it's like because the barrier to entry to create a podcast is so much easier, where there's only so many, anchors that can be on news in different, spots, where anybody can start a podcast and start just trying to accrue an audience. And some people are very good at gaining an audience without depth without
credibility. Yeah. And I think in some ways it's really important that those people are out there, because some of them are doing amazing work, and they didn't need a journalism degree. They didn't need certain, like, it's not all this or that. Like, there are some people out there who, because they don't have those things, are still doing an amazing job at what it is that they're doing. And there are some people who aren't. It's just like all people in the world. And I think TikTok is actually a great example of this. Like, the creator economy is not going away. So why not empower creators to do it as ethically as possible? And this is also something maybe we should be talking about with AI. Like, right? Like,
not going away.
It's not going away. How do we empower people to utilize it in ethical ways? And I don't know if that is completely possible. Yeah.
So in this research you were doing in this time and seeing the data that was coming in podcast, personally, was that a shock to you of like, this thing is really exploding? Because you were in kind of the mindset for a while, I'm sure, of journalism and seeing the difference of, all right, this new format is coming. Was that a surprise to you at all that people were going so much leaning into this area?
No, it wasn't a surprise to me. I consistently in my journalism career, working as a reporter, was a little bit on the forefront of all new media. So when it comes to utilizing Facebook Lives, or do you remember when Periscope was the thing? I don't know if you do or not.
I don't.
But
no.
it was an app like Vine, Snapchat, like all of these different social media tools. I was constantly like one of the first people at whatever station I was at to adapt those tools and figure out how do I utilize these tools to help me in my storytelling abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe I was interviewed by the USA by USA Today at one point because my Facebook page, like my fan page, vastly grew when I was working in Los Angeles because I kept going live from the scenes that I was at that day to bring the audience from the world, from the internet to the scene of wherever I was that day. And so I would do like 5 or 10 minute live starting from the news truck being like, hey, this is where we're going. This is what's coming up. If you want to come with us. Sometimes I put my makeup on while I was like just getting ready to cover whatever it was that I was covering. And the audience felt like they got to know me in a really raw way. And then I wore a completely different hat as soon as I like turned off the Facebook Live. And then I was like, okay, now I've got to go interview this person, figure out what is the real story here. And then I've got to share that for the news. So I would like just in my spare time, right? Like while I was in the news van, would let the audience know what I was working on that day. And so people started following me because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were in LA for a decade and then came back and then came back to your roots here in Saratoga. What brought you back to the East Coast? So
my husband and I were interested in starting a family, and we were looking to hopefully live either like close to my family or close to his family. And he's also in the TV news business. And when you are competitive, ambitious people like we both are, for him, if he was going to leave Los Angeles, he wanted an opportunity to go from market 2 to market 1, and New York City is market 1. So it's easy, like you can make it to market 1 living in Saratoga in a way that you can't quite when you're working in Minneapolis. Because his family's from Minnesota, and I love Minnesota, and I think it would be great to live there at some point. Like it's a really beautiful place. That's where I went to college. I have a bunch of friends there, family there, and I'd love to, like, I was kind of like, we can go anywhere.
Oh, yeah. I was spent. St. Paul is an actually really fun area.
It is so great there. If you've been, like, they have a great science museum. It's right there on the Mississippi River. The Capitol is gorgeous.
Oh, yeah. Fun sports town. Like, there's a lot of good sports fandom. Yeah.
There's, like, inside, like, tunnels connecting Minneapolis buildings to each other, or not just skyways.
Yeah.
Like, they do internal bike races in those skyways in the winter.
That's awesome.
Isn't it?
That's so crazy.
Right? Like, would you love to just like watch a bike race?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
While like drinking coffee from like a nice shop, like while.
Oh, yeah. That's a morning and a half right there.
It's just like, I know. I love watching races, maybe more than competing in them sometimes. Like, if you ever watched an Ironman, you're like, wow, I'm inspired. Like, that's insane. So, like, because you see all these different people from different walks of life. You're like, I can't believe that 95-year-old is like out there, but they're out there. Yeah. And they're going to do it.
They're fun. They're cool events too, because you can kind of go and do something else and then kind of come back and check where the race is at and kind of catch it. There is a fun spectatorship to races in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So, well, you said at the beginning that breath of fresh air of peace.
Yeah.
I kind of half laughed because I knew you were living in LA, which is a little bit different air.
Yes. Well, I mean, so much so, like, because during the pandemic, so we had our second child during the pandemic. And I remember, like, I found out I was pregnant shortly after Thanksgiving. Then it was like New Year's Eve. Then Kobe Bryant passed away. And that was actually really close to where we were living in Los Angeles. Like, I remember we went to church and we heard the sirens like going to that accident. And then when we were out to brunch, like I saw like the TMZ report that it was him who had passed away, which Like, it's just like one of those moments where like, I can't believe that just happened. That is heartbreaking, the entire story there. And then it was like, the pandemic happened, and I just kept being like, when is my husband going to be able to come to maternity appointments with, like, he didn't get to come to any appointments with Ava. I delivered her with a mask on, like all of these things. Wow. Like, we kept like waiting for the pandemic to end, and it just didn't. I mean, it kind of has, but like we just didn't know when it was going to happen. Yeah. And so, and my business like really started to become busy during the pandemic, and I had my son home with me full time. And then I delivered my newborn, and there were wildfires burning like all around us. We had like air purifiers running in our home. Like, it just felt like one insanity. Another, and I couldn't leave the house. Like, it was stir crazy. And so I was like, we need family support, because my husband was an essential worker, so he wasn't around. Yeah. So it was just a lot on me. I felt like I was completely losing myself. Yeah. Like I was a shell of a human.
Well, here you are now.
Yeah.
All right. So getting into Bright Sided Pros, and now, so this is
it's Bright Sided Podcasting. My website's not updated.
My apology. Bright Sided. Yeah. We'll go with that. So you host podcasts. You also produce, I believe, 7 live shows now with the company.
Well, right now, yes.
Yeah. So to start a podcast, or I guess like the beginning of it, like if people want to start a podcast, this is somebody who's brand new, and you said like anybody who has a business you think should have a podcast.
Yes.
Like, why do you think that is, and kind of what are the beginning steps do you think that people should take if they want to start a podcast? What are the things that you would be saying to them?
Well, figure out your why. Mm-hmm. Like, every person who we work with, we have like a why worksheet that we're like, what's your why? Why podcast? Because like, I think that everyone should have a way to connect with their audience and or their clients, their customer base. And podcasting is like a way you can immediately reach them, and you can build like know, like, and trust. Like, people can get to know you, they can get to like you or not like you, and trust you or not. Like, it just like, this is a way to connect with your audience that is long form. So there's less opportunity for, I guess, you to pretend to be something that you're not, because people will be able to see through you because they're smart. Like, there's a lot of smart people out there. So yeah, I think that podcasting provides an opportunity for you to connect with your audience quickly, easily, on their terms when they want to listen. Mm-hmm. And more often than not, I think people do want to determine who they want to listen to, when they want to listen to them, why they want to listen to them, because you can choose what you feed yourself, right? Like, you can choose what's in your mind. And a lot of times people listen to podcasts passively while going on a walk or doing their laundry or doing their dishes. It's like a self-care thing. Mm-hmm. So it's figuring out what's your why if you're a business, or you're an individual who's thinking about launching a podcast. Why are you doing it? Who is your audience? How can you serve them? What do you want to say? Like, what is your purpose? Like, what's the story you need to get off your chest? And what uniquely qualifies you to be the person to serve that audience? And then you just kind of go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the last time I checked, and you can fact check me on it, but there's like millions of podcasts now. There's like 4 million or something like that.
I think that there's maybe 2 million active podcasts. Okay. There's a lot of podcasts that no longer are active. And so they started, but then they stopped.
Yeah. I was going to say, because like 90% of them don't make it past like episode 20 in there. And I could speculate on a lot of different reasons behind it. But what do you think some people maybe they go into it like too quick, or they're missing of starting a podcast, that like maybe are they going in for, do you think, the wrong reasons, or like what do you think, if you were going to get like kind of speculate of like an answer of why people fail on kind of stop on that, what do you think it is?
Well, I think it's really important to, again, figure out what's your why. Mm-hmm. Like, why am I doing this? Yeah. And if the podcast no longer serves your why, then you're not going to want to keep doing it. Also, if it stops being fun, to you, if it stops serving you just as much as serving your audience, then you're not going to want to keep doing it. Like, having fun is an important part of it. Some people are like, oh, if I launch this podcast, I'll be able to make money off of this. And I wouldn't say that's the reason to launch a podcast. Yes, you can absolutely make money with your podcast. Podcasting can be a lead magnet for you to sell your own products. But I wouldn't say it is like the reason to start podcasting. And if you are going to determine your success by how much money you are making, then that might it might not be the right fit for you, because podcasting takes like a year for most podcasters to really start seeing money come in. And there's a number of different ways to work with people to do that. But it's just like, realistically, if you really do want to make money with a podcast, you've got to commit for a year. And so, like, think about the long game.
Oh yeah, I remember. Me and my former partner made that mistake when we started in. So I remember during the pandemic, everybody's trying to figure shit out of like what to do. And we just had so much free time that we were like talking every morning for like 40 minutes just about stuff. And one of our coaches said, why don't you guys start a podcast? You guys are talking already for like 40 minutes.
Yeah.
But we thought this was a way that we would like make money right off the bat. And like people, and you realize like, your friends and your mom is listening right off the bat, and you can like build some audience. But we got like 10, 12 episodes in, and we're like, we need to figure out other ways, to make money. Till somebody just randomly reached out and be like, hey, you guys going to do any more podcasts? I love listening to him. He was a mailman. And he's like, I was listening to him on my route. But that's when we started connecting and interviewing other people. Like, instead of just us talking, we like brought other people on and asked them questions. I'm like, this is so much fun.
Yes.
Just having a conversation with somebody about things that they're inspired by and hearing their insights and what obstacles they overcame. And I was like, let's just do this every day. Like, I just wanted to do this every day. And that's why I've continued with it, because it's just so much fun.
Yeah.
And I think everybody can relate to that. So if somebody's hesitant about doing it, it's like, what's more fun than just having a really good conversation with somebody?
I really think that is one of the main things that people don't realize is so beneficial from podcasting. It's like super networking. Like, you get to really get to know somebody, and it's almost like you have an excuse to network. And it's awesome because you have to bond. Like, if you don't bond, it's a crappy conversation, and the audience isn't going to want to keep listening.
Right.
So it's important to be open to the energy that the other person's going to bring to you. And so often I have found that I've been able to bring together people where they're like, all of a sudden, like, why are we not collaborating on this other project that has nothing to do with this podcast or making money with the podcast? But now we can collaborate on this thing for our businesses, or now we can collaborate with this other like event, or it opens up the door to just other possibilities, and it's really fun.
Oh, it's so fun. Yeah. I mean, connection is currency right there. I mean, how many people you connect with, it's amazing. So do people that you've worked with to help in their podcasting have some of like taken it too seriously, like thinking like they need to be so serious about it and almost forget to have that fun aspect?
I'm trying, I think that there sometimes needs to be, it depends on, I have some clients that are big, business nonprofits that are clients. And I guess it depends on who we're talking to. Like, if you are an independent, person who's thinking about developing and launching your own podcast, I think that it is important for you to prepare, to take it seriously, but also have fun. And so it has to be that for the business clients as well. But of course, with business clients, we have to have a clear definition of what our goals are and what our success is. And I do think sometimes sometimes we can get there. It's not always fun. There are some recording analytics is not always fun. Sometimes there's miscommunications or misunderstandings, and that's not always fun. Sometimes people don't like to be told things. They would rather figure them out themselves. So like, it's just kind of figuring out. So maybe is my answer.
Yeah. So getting into you a little bit more, I mean, you've got a lot on your plate with running a business. You also have 2 kids. You have a marriage.
Yeah.
Kind of balancing everything. What's your process that you work with about trying to balance everything with managing your time so you can be present in all the things that you do? Because I'm sure it's never easy to juggle all these different balls, and everybody's trying to figure out how to get everything in, from the work that they do, from spending time with their family, from doing their self-care. How's your process that you work with of getting everything in that's important to you?
I have become better at this over time. I have struggled with this, like finding balance. I don't even know if it's actually possible. And I don't think that we should put that pressure on ourselves either. So, of course, some things are going to give sometimes, and that's hard. It's hard to figure out it's hard to figure it out, especially when you're in it. You don't even realize what's not being taken care of sometimes. And it usually comes back to yourself, right? Like, it's usually like we let ourselves down the most, right? Without even realizing it, because we don't matter. Like, our clients matter, our kids matter, our husband matters. I don't matter. Like, what? Like, I don't need to go to the gym anymore. It's fine. I can eat this Wendy's sandwich. Like, that's fine. Like, this, like, what? Healthy?
Yeah.
Where's that? So, like, I would say that's probably what drops the ball, like, what drops first for me. It's just, it's hard to remember to keep yourself a priority. I also feel like somebody said something to me recently that tidiness is a form of self-respect. And so for me, I'm like, when did I lose respect for myself? Right? Like, my car is a crap show. Like, there's kid stuff everywhere. Like, it's just like, there's crumbs, there's books, there's shoes, there's like paperwork and arts, and like, it's hard to carry it all out of the car at the end of the night, along with their backpacks and their lunch boxes that they've pulled apart on the car ride home because they need a snack right now, and I can't reach back there. And then they're fighting over who gets the snack as I'm trying to drive, and I'm like, anyway. So it's just taking a minute to be like, how do I just tidy this one little thing? And that will help me gain a little bit more control over things.
Yeah, momentum.
So for me, I have started to like tidy little parts of my life, like my car, like my desk, like there's corners, like the craft corner in my house, like just little things I've started to tidy. The linen closet.
Yeah.
Those things, like doing those little things, really helps me with everything else that I've got going on. Also, I have a schedule for myself. I stop working. Like, I'm not available to my staff or to my clients really after 6 o'clock. Like, when I try to work from 9 to 5, I know that it's probably going to go until 6 sometimes. But once I've got my kids in the car with me, once I've done pickup, I'm done.
Yep.
There is very, very little chance I'm actually going to get to any work for the rest of the night. My husband works nights, so I don't have a partner to help me with dinner, with nighttime routine, with anything. And also, I've missed my kids all day. So I want to spend that time with them. And so I just, like, after 6, you're not going to hear from me.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. And I probably will fall asleep at like 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And that's not even that much time.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of time with your family. And so, and then in the morning, sometimes I'm able to get up early and spend some time at the gym. That hasn't happened, honestly, for like probably 3 weeks. I was doing pretty good at it. And that's the first thing to go when you get a little bit too busy. And with the fall season and sports and sickness and just all the things that have been happening in our lives, like, that just hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Like, so I usually will try to work out and just make some time for myself in the morning from like 5 to 7, 5:30 to 7. And then help my kids get out the door. I start working at 9, and then 9 to 5 is, if you reach 9 to 5 is when to reach me Monday through Friday. The weekends, you're not going to hear from me.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this topic. I love this frame of that word balance, right? Because I never aligned with it either. Somebody told me about the word harmony And I thought that was always
Better.
a much better way. Because with a harmony, sometimes some things are higher, other things are a little bit lower, but you're still kind of working on everything. And sometimes, as you said, just tidying up one little area builds some momentum. We use an analogy of the highway of strength in the work that I do, where it's like, if you think of a highway as 3 lanes, oftentimes we think like we need to put everything in the fast lane, like we need to be perfect on everything. When sometimes with everything that's going on, some things need to be in the right lane. If you go on a highway, all cars, they're going at different speeds, but they're all moving forward. So they're still progressing.
Yeah.
So sometimes, if work's really busy, maybe other things are going to take a little bit of a, not back burner, but maybe you only have 5-10 minutes to do it. I've told clients with workouts, like, just go in and get the warm up done. Like, do 5 minutes of warm up. If you can't do any more afterwards, that's fine. But you're still moving some needle forward. So I think, balance always is like everything's even on both spots. It's like life never works like that. There's always this. So I thought that's your hack of that small little tidiness on there, just so you can do one little thing, I think is so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, this is my self-respect here.
Exactly. So, all right. Well, I have some rapid fire questions that I want to throw at you.
Okay.
I really appreciate your time here. This has been absolutely awesome. So, vacation, beach or mountains?
Beach.
Beach. Window or aisle seat?
Window.
Okay. What's the one movie you've watched more than any other?
Oh gosh. I needed the changes with my seasons in my life. Can I pick us a couple?
Yeah, I'll give you a few. Yeah.
Like, I've watched Shawshank Redemption a few times.
Okay.
And it's always good.
It's always good.
It's always good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I've watched Game of Thrones, not Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings. I'm getting them confused.
Okay.
But Fellowship of the Rings, I've probably seen that like 10 times.
Okay.
I really like Under the Tuscan Sun with Diane Lane. That used to be like my self-care movie.
Okay.
I don't know if you know that one.
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
beautiful.
Lord of the Rings question. So is Fellowship, do you think that's the best of the 3?
That is not what I said. I just think it's the happiest.
Okay.
It's the happiest one because there's it just gets dark. It's like Harry Potter. Like Sorcerer's Stone is a happier one.
Mm-hmm.
It just gets darker the farther you go through it. And it's the same with the Lord of the Rings series. Like the Fellowship one, it's like the music is happy, and then so we get closer.
Oh, it's teed up for hope. They're on the journey.
Yeah,
they're at the beginning.
It's the beginning, and then it's just, then you're like, gosh, it's dark in here. By the time we're trying to get the ring into the volcano, what is it? Sauron.
Sauron. Oh yeah, absolutely.
What is it? The Mountain of Doom.
Yeah.
Schmeagol is all there, and Samwise is like, get out of here, Schmeagol, and Frodo's like, but I love Schmeagol, and Sam's like, I don't trust him. And you're thinking about the own relationships you have in your life. Like, who's Schmeagol? Who's Samwise? Samwise is a real one. And Schmeagol was an opportunist, but it didn't mean that he didn't actually have some good qualities that were redeeming.
Nope.
Right? Because he did help Frodo.
Yeah.
And Frodo saw that. But then look how damaged Frodo got by the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. So sad.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm the only one I know that The Two Towers is my favorite movie.
Why?
Because the Battle of Helm's Deep, I think, is one of the greatest things that ever been, put on film.
That is really good. That's with the blondie is in that one, and she kills the orc, right? The bad one.
That was Galadriel.
No, not Galadriel. The other one, the one who also likes the guy that the elf likes. I can't remember her name.
Oh,
what is her name? The sister. She's
No, that's Return of the King. You know what that's the other. Helm's Deep, the big wall, and they're just beating down the wall, the orcs, and then they think everything's over, and then the Rohirrim come over. We're going so deep and nerdy right now. I absolutely love
great.
it. Yeah.
Great. Keep going.
Yeah, Rohirrim just comes out with Gandalf because he meets him on the light, and then they all come over the hill and they just break everybody down, and then they finish, and then they're going to Mordor, and that's when it ends right there. And then Schmeagol goes back to his old dark, right? Yeah.
Do you see that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And Schmeagol goes back to the dark side. And that's the Carl Jungian psychology of the shadow side that's coming back in. And shit's about to get real.
It gets so real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's dark. And
my God.
Yeah.
Talk about rapid fire.
Is there, is there not a club Is there not in like Saratoga Springs like a Game of Thrones club? Because I would like to join.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, fantasy club.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would do it. I mean, Harry Potter would have to be part of it too, because
we can get there. Yeah. Okay. So you're a big fan of rowing. Okay. What's harder? Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
NCAA champion, 2007, University of Minnesota.
Yes.
What's harder to row, a quad or an 8-boat or an 8-person?
I mean, they're two completely different styles of rowing. Mm-hmm. Like one's sculling and one's sweeping.
Okay.
So I don't know if you know the difference.
No, I know the terms.
Okay.
I don't know how.
So it's two different styles. So sweep rowing, excuse me, is like you have two hands on one oar and the oar goes one way. And so you're going this. Okay. And then sculling, you have to like have one oar. You have one oar here, one oar here.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And it's two completely different styles of rowing.
What did you like?
I was a sweep rower more than a sculler. So I've never rowed in a quad. It's really hard. I know it's really hard to flip a quad and it's really hard to flip an 8, but because there's so much balance there with the oars on both sides.
Beautiful. Okay. What's a quote that's helped you the most along your journey?
So I know Ben Franklin is a problematic guy. I know that. But I also find him fascinating. And he has this one quote that used to be, it might even still be like in my email signature, but it goes, "Dost thou love life? Dost thou love life? Then don't squander time, for that's the stuff life's made up of." And I don't know, I dig it.
I like it.
If you love life, don't squander time.
Yeah.
The stuff life's made up of.
What's the best advice that you ever got?
The best advice I ever got. I feel like I learned a lot from rowing. I had a really great rowing coach when I was in high school here in Saratoga Springs, Eric Catalano. He's actually he's still the co-director over at SRA right now. He went to the Olympics this year for the first time because he had 2 rowers from his team Orion who made it to the Olympics, which is amazing. But I think one of the things that he has said to me multiple times, because I'm just so impressed by his style of coaching, was lead in the front with a banner, not in the back with a whip. And I think that's like, I was raised with the whip, right? Mm. Like I'm more comfortable with the whip than the carrot, but I would rather be with my team in the all of us together, running forward together and just doing it together rather than from behind. Oh, that's
great. I really like that.
Yeah.
So, what's a favorite podcast that you listen to that maybe a lot of people don't know about?
Ooh, okay. Well, I'm going to share one of our own.
Okay.
One of my favorite podcasts to listen to is A Fiber Life by Lisa Mitchell. It is a podcast about how getting back to nature can help you find yourself. And it's a farm lifestyle podcast where they raise guanacos, which are like llamas, but meaner. And they raise them for their fiber. And then they sell the fiber. It's a luxury fiber, guanaco fiber. And then people make things out of it.
Wow.
And so she spins the fiber and she just has this amazing gift of storytelling. And I just am inspired by her. I learn from her. She's just one of the most thoughtful people out there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Her podcast is incredible. And I constantly learn about myself and get to escape my daily life. While I'm listening to her with her husband Greg on their farm, talking about the simple things.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, last one. I mean, this is Inspire Saratoga. So who inspires you the most in your life right now?
My kids. My kids make me want to be better than I am.
Mm-hmm.
I just want their happiness. I want their joy. I want to live joy with them. I want to experience life with them. I want to see them, like, seeing them turn into little people is amazing. To go from, like, they were just little babies, but now they're like contributing people. They're 4 and 6. So we're getting a little bit more from our 6-year-old than our 4-year-old, but it's amazing to just kind of re-experience life through their eyes. And they just inspire me to want to be the best version of myself for them and with them.
Love it.
Yeah.
So, Christine O'Donnell, thank you so much. I'm really grateful for you joining me here. I really learned so much from you and really appreciate this conversation. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Michael. I learned from you too.
Absolutely. So if people want to check out more of everything that you're doing, podcasts, all that good stuff, what's the best place that they can go and check it out?
You can find our website, brightsighted.com. So that's sight, like you see with your eyes, bright-sighted. You can also find me on Instagram. Like I have I'm there. I'm there on the Insta. Yep. So at the Christine OD is where you can find me.
Beautiful. Yep. Awesome. Thank you so much. Listeners, thank you so much. I'll catch you guys on the next one. All right. Peace.
Thank you for joining me today. I hope you got some great value from this episode and a little more insight into some inspiring work happening right in this town. If you want to know more about our guests' work and check out more of what they are doing, please click on the links in the show notes below. And along with that, check out the direct link to 5-Minute Mindset. This is a 5-minute video that gives you the 2 best practices that you can do every day in 5 minutes that will create a major impact in your mental strength and resilience. If you are on your own mission to become physically and mentally stronger, these practices will be a serious game changer for you. Seriously. Thank you again for joining me today. I'll see you on the next one.